Congratulations, and photo. I know, right? Oh, hey. How's it going? Hello, I was telling you. Where's your house? No, for everybody. Yeah, oh yeah, you're always. I laughed, my mother. Just fine.
Please stop downstairs.
Yeah, no, they were outside. Oh, Kevin's my youngest. Oh, yeah. No, we went last week. He's saying, yeah, he was first there. My son's gonna take me in the cat. I didn't think I was doing that over there Sunday, Saturday, on my eyes. I'm like, what the hell? I couldn't do that thing. So, I raised every other day this week.
What's he going to do? He's going to revamp the whole backyard. That's one of the upcoming rubber.
Oh, yeah, they could be. Yes.
I have a irrigation system that does my.
Oh, nice. Oh, so you have to be patient that. Oh, that's nice. You dry out so fast. You got to clean something.
We have a phone number. You kind of watch out.
Would you like to get started?
Yes. All right. We live? Yes. Would the audience please stand and pledge allegiance? Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Yeah. 1930s. Yeah. Before we start with the agenda and meeting this evening, I just wanted to go on record. I wanted to make a statement. As much as this is my last meeting as mayor on the board, I wanted to, first of all, I know you all came to be sure I was leaving. Just us. I want to thank the board and my fellow trustees and the village staff, Maria, Nikki, and Chris, for their support throughout my term. My time as mayor has been an experience I will cherish forever. And I know Steve Minicozy will go on to do great things for the village. And I wish Steve all the very best. In addition, with my term coming to an end tonight, Patricia Farnell also has a term expiring tonight. She elected not to run again, and we'll miss her. We thank her for the 4 years that she's served the village diligently. So with that, I'm going to ask Maria Alfano Hardy to proceed with the agenda.
Thank you, Mayor. And if I may say so, it's been a pleasure serving you and the village as always for these past 4 years. So,
Thank you, Maria.
The first item on the agenda is the warrants and claims, and I need a motion to accept the warrants and claims as presented and audited.
Make a motion?
Thank you, trustee Galseki.
I will second.
Thank you, trustee Nigro. Trustee Santoro?
Yes.
Trustee Parnell?
Yes.
Trustee Nigro?
Yes.
Trustee Mancozy?
Yes.
Trustee Galseki?
Yes.
Mayor Di Natale.
Yes.
The next item are the prior meeting minutes from the meeting of May 23rd, 2022.
I'll make a motion.
Thank you, trustee Parnell.
I'll second.
Thank you, trustee Santoro. Trustee Santoro?
Yes.
Trustee Parnell?
Yes.
Trustee Nigro?
Yes.
Trustee Minicozy?
Yes.
Trustee Galseki?
Yes.
Mayor Di Natale.
Yes.
The next item is the hiring of some new lifeguards. In a way, we've been fortunate. We have been able to get some new lifeguards on board this season, as difficult as it has been to get lifeguards. So we'd like to hire, at the recommendation of David Russ, Philip Terrell, Connor Terrell, Carly Positek, Emma Carosa, and Sean Murphy as seasonal lifeguards at an hourly rate of $15.50 per hour.
I'll make the motion.
Thank you, trustee Santoro. Thank you, trustee Parnell. Trustee Santoro?
Yes.
Trustee Parnell?
Yes.
Trustee Nigro?
Yes.
Trustee Minicozy?
Yes.
Trustee Bartolomeo?
Stay.
Trustee Galseki?
Yes.
Mayor Di Natale.
Yes.
Next item on the agenda is the request from the Locust Valley High School Athletic Council for approval to use Bayville Avenue for its homecoming parade to be held on Saturday, September 17th, 2022. And they are telling us that Bayville Avenue will not be closed during the time of the parade, which is between 12 noon and 1 p.m.
I'll move the resolution.
Thank you, trustee Nigro.
Second?
Thank you, trustee Galseki. Trustee Santoro?
Yes.
Trustee Parnell?
Yes.
Trustee Nigro?
Yes.
Trustee Minicozy?
Yes.
Trustee Bartolomeo?
Yes.
Trustee Galseki?
Yes.
Mayor Di Natale.
Yes.
The next items on the agenda are change orders that have been provided to us from United Paving Corp. United Paving Corp is the contractor who won the bid to do the paving on School Street and Merritt Lane. They are at this time scheduled to begin the work on July 11th. In addition to the work that was part of the contract, we've asked them to give us a change order to cover a collapsing drain at the base of Peter and Perry Avenue, and that drain will require the installation of a new 4x4 Nassau County type 80 mod catch basin with curb casting. We also added to the project the resetting of the granite block with curb out here across the School Street at the parking area, and to install asphalt curb along School Street to help with runoff to the St. Gertrude's side and to the east and west sides of School Street. So the total for that is $31,400.
Make a motion, we approve the change order for paving.
Thank you, trustee Mancozy.
Second?
Thank you, trustee Galseki. Trustee Santoro?
Yes.
Trustee Parnell?
Yes.
Trustee Nigro?
Yes.
Trustee Minicozy?
Yes.
Trustee Bartolomeo? Yes. Trustee Galseki?
Yes.
Mayor Di Natale.
Yes.
We have the resignation of Alice Homemuller from the Zoning Board of Appeals, and I know that you as a board will accept her resolution, but with regret.
Make a motion to accept the resignation from Alice.
Thank you, trustee Galseki.
I will second it with a similar amount of regret.
Thank you, trustee Nigro. Trustee Santoro?
Yes.
Trustee Parnell?
Yes.
Trustee Nigro?
Yes.
Trustee Minicozy?
Yes.
Trustee Bartolomeo?
Yes.
Trustee Galseki?
Yes.
Mayor Di Natale.
Yes.
The next item is the municipal agreement. It's the annual municipal agreement. This one is for 2022-2023 school year between the Village of Bayville and Locust Valley Schools.
I've looked that over and I don't see any
No
problems.
issues with it? Thank you, Peter.
We make a motion to accept the municipal agreement.
Thank you.
I'll second.
Thank you, Trustee Cornell. Trustee Santoro?
Yes.
Trustee Cornell?
Yes.
Trustee Nigro?
Yes.
Trustee Minicozzi? Excuse me, Trustee DeBartolomeo? Yes. Trustee Valsecchi?
Yes.
Mayor Di Natale.
Yes.
The next item on the agenda is a resolution needed to approve and allow Mayor Di Natale to sign a site lease agreement with Dish Wireless for providing telecommunication service in Bayville by installing updated equipment on the water tower. This is in the spot that was vacated by Nextel. For your information, the rent is $6,500 per month, or an annual amount of $78,000 per year, which will go directly into the water fund to help finance improvements to the water service system. There's annual increases in the agreement as 3%. It's a 60-month term, renewable for an additional 4 terms at the discretion for the of the board, correct?
I've looked it over and it meets my approval. I've worked with, I think the engineer looked at it with the water company.
It was completely reviewed by H2M as relates to the placement and the safety of putting these on the water tower, yes.
So it looks okay to me.
So the motion would be to authorize Mayor Di Natale to sign and enter into this agreement with Dish Wireless.
May I ask a question?
Sure.
What services is Dish Wireless giving us? Is it cable television?
I don't believe,
Yeah, I think they're just cell carrier, I believe.
they basically, have this system whereby you can pick up a signal from the satellites, but I don't know exactly how it works.
So is it, so it's not for people who don't have Verizon, AT&T?
Yeah, that's basically, I think, what it is.
It's another
I
service.
think what you tell us, what you tell
Yeah,
us.
it's just it's an additional way of getting a signal. Some people prefer not to use cable vision or the other landlines, if you will. So they can get this through the satellite system. That's my understanding of it. AT&T is trying to do it too, but they're not as, in fact, I think AT&T purchased this or they sold off on it.
So this would be a dish on there, or is it kind of?
No, these are on persons' houses.
They're the
It's
dish.
that little dish
Right.
antenna, and this system must coordinate it. I don't know whether the signal comes from our tower or whether it comes from.
I think they call them repeaters.
Pardon?
They call them repeaters.
I think so.
Now accept the signal and repeat it, they get billed.
But anyway, it's a good alternative to the fact that we lost the other carrier that has been acquired by one of the other companies.
So they'll be using the abandoned Nextel space, which has been vacated. They will use any abandoned conduits left behind by Nextel. So that's part of what they're using for the infrastructure with this communication system.
I move the resolution to approve the site lease agreement with Dish Wireless.
And authorize Mayor Di Natale to sign the agreement.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you. Trustee DeBartolomeo. Trustee Santoro?
Yes.
Trustee Cornell?
Yes.
Trustee Nigro?
Yes.
Trustee Minicozzi?
Yes.
Trustee DeBartolomeo? Trustee Valsecchi?
Yes.
Mayor Di Natale.
Yes.
We have a new hire on before you, and his name is Daniel Gray. He was hired as a laborer for the Department of Public Works at an annual starting salary of $31,987.68 as per the collective bargaining agreement that is effective July 11, 2022. So the starting salary is as per the collective bargaining agreement.
We make a motion to hire.
Thank you, Trustee Valsecchi.
I'll second.
Thank you, Trustee Cornell. Trustee Santoro?
Yes.
Trustee Cornell?
Yes.
Trustee Nigro?
Yes.
Trustee Minicozy?
Yes.
Trustee DiBartolomeo? Yes. Trustee Belzetti?
Yes.
Mayor Di
Yes.
The next item on the agenda is for a resolution, actually, that would be to reject all bids that were received on June 16, 2022 for the maintenance dredging project at Creek Marina. And this is per the recommendation of Dr. Walton Abrams and James Bajak of Drew Associates Inc. And Dr. Abrams is here. Members of the voting committee are also here to have a little more discussion about this project and the fact that we have attempted now several times to get this project off the ground. So I'm going to, I think, turn it over to you, Dr. Abrams, to speak to the group.
Thanks, Maria, and Mayor, it's been a pleasure working with you.
Likewise, thank you.
Hope we can move forward. We received 2 bids. We had sent out, communicated with 13 potential contractors. Several of them opined that the bridge issue would obstruct them. They have large equipment, large companies, Great Lakes Dredging and Dredge America, big companies. We had several that just felt it didn't fit their schedule. And then we had 3 that responded, 2 that submitted sealed bids, and 1 that emailed me at the last minute, giving me their opinion. And Jim and I have been told, well, we're working on this sort of thing all the time in other marinas, Glen Cove, Manhasset Bay. Jim's very active up on the Connecticut coast. And so the recommendation that I wrote and the analysis that Jim and I produced is based not only on what we've seen here, but what we've learned and what we know from the industry over the last few years. They're not realistic bids, the 2 that were received. One of them violates the subcontracting limits. The coastline consultants, even their website acknowledges they don't do dredging, they just manage. And so they would be using Patriot Marine, which is a bona fide company, but they didn't make the bid. One reason that we feel this provision is important is, suppose something happens, goes awry, as Patriot is doing the work. You're not in contract with Patriot, you're in contract with Coastline, which means whatever debate, dispute, etc. happens, you've got to go through Coastline. And we feel that that's not a good way to run a job, so our RFP provided for a limit to subcontracting. The other bid from H&L, they're the company that's working on the bridge. And their numbers are kind of crazy. $425,000 for mobilizing. They're already working in the bay. The number is unrealistic. They also have a very high number for the monitoring. Now, monitoring during dredging is by automated equipment mounted on the barge. And that equipment has to be calibrated and certified by the Army Corps on a routine basis. So we're not talking about a lot of labor on anybody's part to do the reporting. It's electronic and automatic. And so $70,000 for that. Quite frankly, Jim and I said, gee, they need to buy some new equipment. So our recommendations about these 2 bids are not good. The third company that contacted us, Hanson, is familiar to Jim Bajak. He's done quite a bit with them. And their numbers would, if they did a full bid, their numbers would come in at more like 400,000. So we've got that prospect versus 900 plus and 1 million plus. And that made us feel that the 2 that have bid are just overreaching. And that's how we see it. Questions?
So the only problem with the third bid is that it came in by email. Everything within the bid is.
Well, there's one more, Stephen, there's one more issue with that company. They feel their answer when we said, well, why won't you submit the full bid? Well, if they have to do a bond they're gonna increase their costs tremendously. Now, obtaining a bond, a bid bond, is not very expensive. Somebody's gotta come up with $10,000 or $20,000 in cash, and apparently that's too much, they're a small firm. We ourselves have faced this problem with doing municipal work. We're a small firm. We don't carry large insurance, and we generally don't need bonding or consultants. So I'm sort of sympathetic to them in that they felt that they couldn't put together a formal bid. But their information is useful because it shows us they're at $21, $22 a yard for disposal. H&L is at $38 a yard for disposal. And Coastline/Patriot is at $61 a yard. Now, in talking and watching the industry over the last few years, that's the full bracket of all the possibilities that are out there. So we really should be in the 30s range. And I'm sure that if we could find a legal pathway to entertaining a bid from Hanson, maybe their numbers would go up a bit. I don't know how much. I didn't engage in the discussion with them because I could only follow the rules that are in the RFP. But that's the range of information that we bring to you and helping you make a decision.
Ron, may I ask you a question? Are they only complaining about the bid bond, or are they concerned about bonding the job itself?
That may be what's behind it. They didn't give me a specific.
Yeah, you see, because usually on municipal contracts of that sort, it's always recommended that you have it bonded, so that if they default, you can go to the bonding company and have them finish the actual work.
I understand.
Those bonds can get expensive, but if you're saying that the amount that they bid is, say, in the $400,000, $500,000 range, those aren't that. I mean, I've seen subdividers get them in a heartbeat. And a lot depends upon the background and how much work they do. And maybe they ought to get consult with some insurance people to see whether or not they can.
Well, if
be a
we
little
feel
more competitive.
If we feel that we want to talk to them, we'll go back to them and we'll ask for more detail. But like I said, Jim knows somebody at that firm, and so some of the information came through Jim. Because I was in charge of the RFP, I didn't enter into the back and forth with these bidders. But I think that there's potential there, and I think you're right. They were vague in their response because I didn't pursue it. But it might be that that's what they're worried about. As far as I can remember, looking over their background, they do mostly for private outfits. And they're quite busy with private jobs where this kind of issue isn't necessarily as troublesome. So the fact that they gave us some information is a little out of the ballpark for them, but maybe we should talk to them more.
How many bids went out, if you don't mind me asking?
13.
And we only got 3 back, well,
Well,
2
two
and a half.
and-
2 and a half. Do we go back to the other? Is there a reason why no one else bid on it?
Well, a couple of them said the size of it. 3 out of the 13 I know felt the size of their equipment would be challenged by the bridge.
Being that you're in the business, who have you seen done this in other municipalities?
Well, all those firms have done. And for some of them, the bridge is an issue. That's
Just because of the work on it, or if the bridge was functioning properly?
If the bridge opened fully, then they would have, as I understand it, the opening that the bridge can provide now is about 35 feet. That's just about exact for most barges. So they want 70 feet to be safe. And also, if you have to limit your passage through the bridge because of that 35, you probably have an even more severe limitation because of the tides. So, maybe part of that 35 isn't quite as deep as you want it to be. And rather than, take the chance, these guys who are obviously all quite busy say, okay, that's not for us.
Would the bids be lower?
Well, more competition should get us.
Yeah, I mean, if the bridge was fully,
If the bridge was operating, the word would be out that the competition is steeper for this job. Now, this is not a large job. These firms are all doing 3, 4, 5 million
Right.
more. And so a
Which
job.
may be more the reason why they're raising it right now, because it's not a large job.
Yeah, a job under $1 million is small for them. But add to it the bridge, and obviously a number of them chose not to take a shot at it.
Who did the dredging the last time?
The water environmental, the water environmental.
And have they given a bid?
No, we haven't, no.
Not interested in it? It's a Basilica.
Yeah.
Well, now, that's interesting. Basilico is now linked to Breakwater Marine, and they have large equipment.
Right.
I've spoken to Mike about that directly.
Does Melrose Marine?
They're more
They
construction.
do mostly, that's, I know, but I just wanted to find out.
I mean, if we were in a position to cobble together a team, they could be part of the team to provide some of the support, moving of the docks and piles. But as for just remember, from this RFP, we removed any construction work. It was just dredging.
Just dredging.
Understood.
Now, say we picked one of those bids, how long would it take for the job to start? Because we could maybe put it back to an RFP, and by the time the dredging is gonna be done, possibly the bridge will be.
The bridge schedule is on, as soon as they think that it will be open for full width is December, but they didn't guarantee me that. They just said maybe by December. So it would be very hard for a firm to bank on that.
Well, I mean, excuse me, on top of which, Dr. Rubens, we are limited by our permit as to when we can actually
Well,
dredge.
we have, the dredging has to start in October and finish by the end of December. Could we get a few extra weeks if December was really a good month? But then again, we face the potential for weather and the holidays. So that would make a firm stop and think, I'm not gonna bet on the bridge being available early in December and then I run out of time. And we have had extensions to the time, but you only get an extension past the end of December when the work has begun and you can show your progress and you can answer the agencies, okay, I need 2 more weeks, look at what I did, and I'm gonna just finish. And we're not gonna be in that position until it starts.
Can we put this off to the following year?
Well, I think that that's one of the valid choices because, good Lord, the bridge was supposed to be done this month. The fact that it's going to the end of the year, I would think the county can't just let this go on and on. We can check with the county if they've got, in some contracts, there are penalties for missing deadlines. I don't know what's happening, and that makes me worry about H&L because they're doing the bridge. Have they pumped up their bid because they want to cover some cost that's coming from being late?
But the schedule for the bridge has been out for a while to go through November of this year.
Yes, they
We have
updated it.
foreclosure in November and in April.
Yes, they updated it at the end of last year, but when we prepared for this last year, they were telling us they'd be done in the spring of '22.
So what's the downside for the village to wait until the bridge is completed?
Well, that would come from you fellas.
We've lost how many slips already?
Yeah.
We're down at low tide.
No, I know, I
It's
know, I know it's what it's like in there, but I'm just wondering, from a cost perspective, is it better to wait a year or to do it?
On the inside where the small boat slips are, at dead low tide, a lot of boats can't get out.
Yeah.
I mean, we've lost slips and you literally cannot pull out. So it's like we're losing the marina slowly.
Now, there is one thing nobody's really talked about. We're authorized to build those extra docks. We had a debate about the nature preserve line, but we've now submitted back to DEC to move them to the other end, which has deeper water. That could help you wait another year.
Move everything.
Well, you're adding.
Yeah,
You're adding.
move everything.
Yeah, well, we've already revised them.
Right.
Then you would have more after the dredging, you would still have some additional space.
Well, what we would do is it would be a stopgap for any that are lost this year, because there'll be some extra ones.
Right.
And then when the dredging happens, you get everything.
Right. I mean, yeah.
That would be, and then put it out to bid.
Yeah, we just revised the
Is
RFP.
it the present width of the bridge?
The main
Under
problem-
construction, yes, under construction, it's down to 35 feet when it should be 70.
Okay, but when the bridge is completed, how wide?
70.
70, okay.
How many slips do you lose per year by waiting?
We've lost initially from the last dredge, because there was a mistake with the silicone blue water. We lost 10 slips, which over 20 years equates to about 400,000. Now we've been losing, we've lost the entire, as you come down the dock, the entire western portion. Those boats, the people that are there are generally using them strictly at half tide and full tide. We've lost the first 4 or 5 on the inside, and 1 or 2 additional on the large boat side, on the north side.
So if we wait a year, what do you project, how many do you project to lose by waiting one more year?
This year, right now, we did not fill an additional 2 because of the mud. People are just complaining that like, we're not going to.
So, as we're losing clients, instead of refilling them with the waiting list,
Right.
we've just
Leaving
stopped
them
them.
And I'm only asking, looking
Yeah.
for a cost
No,
analysis.
I know.
It all depends on how much silk comes in.
And now that we
You
have.
know,
we have,
I'm just sitting here listening to all this. I mean, I don't think the village has a choice but to wait. I mean, how could you proceed with what you've presented tonight? If it was my responsibility financially, I couldn't possibly get involved doing that dredging.
What do you think the bids would be if the bridge was completed a year from, say a year from now? And how much difference in those bids? Are they still going to be 400,000 or are they going to be 200,000?
Before it all started, Jim and I thought this job shouldn't go over 500,000. So our bids are 900 and a million. So would competition bring it down to where we think it should be? Well, that one who gave me the informal numbers thinks that's what they would do.
How many slips can we build in the interim for them to?
About 10 additional.
I think, is it 10?
Yeah.
Well, it depends how you treat
Depends on
the
how
end.
we
Cruising
exactly.
space amount.
10 to 12. And we have the permit for it, we just have to switch its location, so, and we've already submitted the DEC for that.
Will the dredging, the dumping into the sound still be allowed in a year?
We have no reason to think that the material has changed, or that there's any reason for it to change. Haven't had accidents or pollution events, or, in fact, it's been a pretty wet spring, so the water quality's been pretty good. So no, I don't think that'll change. We did put that in our last letter to DEC, just to confirm, but our opinion is it won't change. Just so you understand, test results that are older than 4 or 5 years, nobody likes, but we're still within 2 years.
No one has a crystal ball.
To
Gas
put all
prices
this-
could be $10 a gallon in a year, and the prices
Put it
still at $1
in-
billion.
To put it in perspective, last time, 20 years ago, Maria just confirmed my numbers, we spent $1 million to do the same job. And then we got sued by the contractor, if I'm not mistaken, for the mistake that he made. And then we lost all the 10 additional slips. So if we can get this down to the 500,000, it would be great. But looking at it, we paid 20 years ago $1 million, and today it's $1 million as well. So how bad did we get ripped off last time? That's what it comes down to.
Last time you carted the dredged material, this time it's supposed to be cheaper to dump it in the sound.
Exactly, I'm just putting it all in perspective for you. And that's why we don't want the open water. We filed the
Open water is less expensive, and every 10 years, the bottomland disposal gets increasingly expensive. And we didn't even look for that this time, because trucking and disposing on Long Island has become really hard. And, well, for example, we're negotiating for Glen Cove Marina, and they're going to New Jersey and Pennsylvania. It's going to cost too much.
So obviously, we're not accepting these bids. Are you looking for a motion to reject these bids now?
That's what you would be doing at this time unless you look at all, unless you
decide to award, you're rejecting.
What is the process to do the sole sourcing?
I don't know. We only raised it as an idea. We don't have no real legal perspective on whether a village can do that. In this case, my opinion, Peter, I don't know if this is valid. The costs are coming in out of the ballpark. It just can't be accepted. So is that strong enough justification to go outside of the bid process?
It's pretty tough on municipal bids to do that. They always say to rebid, and, you know, you have the perfect right to reject, but I don't think you can go out and start negotiating without bid, because you exceed the limitations of the law. And so you have to do it that way. I think it makes sense, though, when you think about the bridge problems. Number two, and there's another reason too. Let's face it, we all are experiencing, right after this COVID thing, everybody's jacking their prices up like crazy because they don't know what the future is. And so it seems to me that if you could get by with waiting another year and do something in the interim, things might, you know, from a general standpoint, settle down a little bit. And then if you had the 70-foot width there, you're gonna open yourself up to a few more people that would want to compete for it. Because who knows, you know, you can't predict the future, but that seems to be the most sensible thing to do, in my opinion.
What also is the impact on the residents in terms of the bridge opening and closing with the dredging? Because right now you have that big barge out there that moves back and forth, and the bridge is up or down, you know, with the work. Will the dredging entail extra weights at the bridge for people? Whereas if you do it when the bridge is completed, and I'm only asking because I don't know.
No, it's a good question. It's a good question.
You know, people are out of sorts when the bridge is not functioning, or one down to one lane. So will that cause that to be more frequent? Whereas if we do it after the bridge work is completed, there'll be less intervals or more time between.
We shared your concern, and in the RFP is language about the contractor will need to keep touch with the Coast Guard about schedules and availability, and we don't know what will happen. You're right. If it's a narrower bridge, there could be traffic jams, and when the bridge is fully open, there's less pressure. When the bridge is fully open, two vessels can pass each other. When it's just 35 feet, it's one way. It's a one-way lane for most boats.
So that would make the bridge open longer. Longer waits for people.
Yeah, that's right. You can get some traffic.
Right. Because the traffic's been very backed up now.
There's less road traffic.
I'll make a motion to reject the two bids received on June 16th.
Thank you, trustee.
Second.
Thank you, trustee DeBartolomeo. Trustee Sanchez.
Yes.
Trustee Barnell. Yes. Trustee Nygross.
Yes.
Trustee Nicosi.
Yes.
Trustee DeBartolomeo. Yes. Trustee Malfetti.
Yes.
Mayor Vitale.
Yes.
I have another question, but what do we need to do now to get those additional dock spaces? I mean, is that something that can,
What
to
can we
get
do
those
to make
additional
sure they
dock
get their 10
spaces?
spaces?
What do we need to do?
The papers are in for the permit. We were approved, we have a permit for
Right.
building them at the one end. Between Frank and Jim, there were discussions and it was decided, let's move them to the other end. So we put those new drawings and a request into the DEC already. So we should have an answer from them in a matter of weeks. It's
And then
really,
we'll come, then what do we need to do? We need to approve it on our end?
well, then you would, the new dock construction is not part of this RFP. So the village would need to do the proper, whatever's necessary to get a contractor to build those docks as a separate activity from the dredging.
And is that feasible?
Yeah, I mean, we have new docks built, pretty much every year. We change sections out, we kind of planning ahead, we change the way the boards are running to make things easier for the future. So it would just be, bidding that out separately.
The issue is we'd be putting in new poles to take out the holes to dredge.
Yeah.
So it's like, double work, is it?
Well, Jim did make one comment to me. That end of the marina has got some good depth, so maybe the poles could stay. I don't know that, that's a contractor's end.
Okay. Thank you.
Then go to the next item.
Yes.
The next item on the agenda is a home hire for DPW for summer help. That is Nick DiNatale at a starting rate of $15 per hour.
I'll make the motion.
Second. Thank you, Trustee Santoro. Thank you, Trustee Cornell. Trustee Santoro.
Yes.
Trustee Cornell.
Yes.
Trustee Nyro.
Yes.
Trustee Minicozzi.
Yes.
Trustee Bartolomeo.
Yes.
Trustee Valsetti.
Yes.
Mayor DiNatale.
I'll abstain.
We do now have a local law hearing. And notice is hereby given that the Board of Trustees of the Incorporated Village of Bayville will hold a public hearing commencing at 6:45 p.m. Let the record show it is 7:12 p.m. on Monday, June 27, 2022, at Bayville Village Hall, 31st School Street in said village. The hearing will be on whether to enact proposal for law 2022-P, which will establish no parking on Cemetery Lane between the hours of 6 p.m. and 6 a.m. by amending the Village Code, Section 75-45, Schedule 12, no parking certain hours. Copy of proposal of law 2022-B is posted on Village of Bayville's website, and which may be found at the URL that is in the notice. Proposal of law 2022-B may also be viewed at the Bayville Village Hall, 31st School Street, Bayville, New York, 11709, where it may be reviewed between the hours of 8:30 a.m. and 4:30 p.m. Monday through Friday, from the date of this notice to the time of the hearing. Persons who may suffer from a disability which will prevent them from participating in said hearing should notify Maria Alfano Party, Village Clerk Treasurer, at 516-628-1439 in sufficient time to permit such arrangements to be made to enable such persons to participate in said hearing. By order of the Board of Trustees, Incorporated Village of Bayville, Maria Alfano Party, Village Clerk, and the notice is dated June 9, 2022. For the record, there is an affidavit of publication with Newsday and an affidavit of posting. Again, the law before you is to amend and change section 75-45 of the Village Code, Schedule 12, no parking certain hours. And the area in question is Cemetery Lane.
And this would become local law number 2.
Of 2022.
For 2022. And your resolution will basically be what you see on the local law. You're going to resolve to enact the law as you see it, as it was published. I don't think it's necessary to reread that law, but you should adopt the resolution. It should go as follows. Resolved, Board of Trustees.
Excuse me, Peter, do they want to discuss it first, or we need to
Oh,
close
I'm
the
sorry.
public hearing first? So I'm putting it out there if there's any discussion or questions first, and then I'll have them close the hearing.
I have no question. I'd like to hear everybody's here on it. I have no questions regarding it.
All right, then we can close the public hearing at 7:15 p.m. if I have a motion to do so.
Make a motion?
Thank you,
Second.
Trustee Valsetti. Thank you, Trustee Nyro. Trustee Santoro.
Yes.
Trustee Barnell.
Yes.
Trustee Nyro.
Yes.
Trustee Minicozzi.
Yes.
Trustee Bartolomeo.
Yes.
Trustee Valsetti.
Yes.
Mayor DiNatale.
Yes.
Okay, and now, Peter, if you have a resolution for the board to adopt.
Resolved that the Board of Trustees hereby adopts a proposed local law B 2022B, which will now become local law 2, 2022, to establish no parking on Cemetery Lane between the hours of 6 p.m. and 6 a.m. You have this in front of you. It will be adopted in the format that you see of you enacting it in that manner.
It's to cover both sides, correct? And it's the entire length of Cemetery Lane.
That's what it says, it's no parking at all on Cemetery Lane.
I have a question. Okay. What will happen if people start parking there? Will they be arrested?
Well, they'll get a parking ticket. That's the extent of it. Like it would be with any other place where there's no parking sign.
Is there anything else in the resolution that's required?
Or,
Is there anything else required for the resolution?
no, not at all. If you accept that resolution as I've stated it, you can take a vote on that.
A motion to report that resolution as read by Village Attorney Weiler.
Make a motion.
Thank you, Trustee
I'll
Sandra.
second.
Thank you, Trustee Parnell. Trustee Sandra.
Yes.
Trustee Parnell.
Yes.
Trustee Nigro.
Yes.
Trustee Nicosi.
Yes.
Trustee DeBartolomeo.
Yes.
Trustee Donsecchi.
Yes.
Mayor D'Italia.
Yes.
Unless there's any other business or discussion with the public, our next resolution would be to adjourn into executive session, but I will turn it back to you at this time. Mayor D'Italia, if you'd like to open it to the audience.
Is there any resident in the audience wishing to make a statement tonight?
It's this row, Merritt Lane, Bayville. Just a couple of questions. I just want to lean a little bit on what they were talking about, the barge. I think the question wasn't quite defined. It seems to me that you were worried about the bridge being open and the barge going through. He doesn't know whether he has to open the bridge to get the barge through. I'm just throwing that in there, just a little chat I had with him, something you consider. Second thing was the, I don't know how this fits, but there's a lot of clammers and commercial guys that come in and all of them clams out of in Bayville and Merritt Lane anyway. They strip it bare. I mean, you know, we go in there and get an office dinner. They come in there and man, they'll take out 15 to 20 bushels of steamers, and you can't approach them because they get a little violent, you know. I don't know if they have a right to do that. Certainly don't want to deprive someone of their living.
There's a limit, no. These climbers, are they riding like over, they'll walk down?
Car.
Sorry?
Car.
Next time you see one, give them a call.
We did call,
Who'd you call?
and someone called us back today, as a matter of fact, I think it was today, and said, well, you know, you have to call the Department of something.
Mr. Sistro.
Yeah.
Let me put this to bed. If you see them coming in,
Right.
call me. We have direct contact with the town of Oyster Bay Shellfish.
Constable, right?
Yes, sir.
So, but still, the question is, I guess they have a right to farm it, but they only in limitation.
There's a limit.
There is a limit, yeah.
And do we know, the commercial clamor, I mean, he'd be out in a boat. I don't think the commercial, to be honest with you. For that, we would look for the licenses.
Yeah. But would that change it if they were licensed?
They would be, I don't know the numbers, but if you're commercial, you're permitted more, you're permitted to harvest more than a person working out.
Right.
Yeah. So, just give us a call, keep us in the loop.
Well, okay.
You probably have my cell number.
Most likely I do, but I'm not sure. I don't bother you that much directly. Don't snicker. No, I don't bother you. You know that. No, it just happened again where they took like 16 bushels. They had these dredges that they slid along the ground, filled the sacks up, put the tags on them. Now, I don't know if that constitutes the legality of what they're doing. I imagine they have to use a tag
legally.
I'm not totally familiar with all the regulations, but you do have the state constable for town of West Bay. You're talking about planning on the sound side of it.
Yeah.
And I'm not quite sure whether the town of West Bay has jurisdiction on Long Island Sound.
We have a couple of constables that live in the village.
We might have to check on that, because I'm not familiar with all the rules and regulations, but I can see that there's a possibility with Long Island Sound, you might have a different situation.
The guy I spoke to today, didn't get his name because I picked it up at the end of the conversation. He says, yeah, we're getting a lot of that. They're coming in from Huntington. They're coming in from here. They're coming in from there. I mean, I'm going to tell you, they strip out an area pretty damn good. It's unbelievable how they'll just strip an area out.
Climber, you still need a license, whether or not you need a state license to take care of, take claims out of Long Island Sound, I'm not sure.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we know what to do. Okay. Last one is personal. They're going to do Merritt Lane. I noticed there was a change in the paving, but I didn't quite catch what that meant. Merritt Lane's going to be paved. Is that still on the agenda?
Yes.
You have any idea when?
July 11th.
July 11th. Wonderful. Okay. We all know. Thank you for your time. Thank you for volunteering your time. And I hope we fix the PA so we can all hear. There's not too many of us here, but I hope that gets improved. And congratulations, you're being appointed as mayor. And I'll be happy to come to your swearing-in ceremony, whenever that is. And I thank you all for all your efforts and your time spent for our village. I appreciate it. Thank you. Okay.
Thank you.
We have a question for Peter, possibly.
Well, Frank's come up with an idea, wondering if it would help. When an RFP has elements in it that no single firm can meet, we're wondering if that's a reason to go outside the bid process. Or to have a bid that's structured in such a way that you kind of know who can and can't do the work. For example, a team approach where a firm like Melrose and Hanson combine to do 3 tasks. Construct the docks, install and manage pilings and dredge. Well, most of the other firms wouldn't do all of those things. The 13 that we first reached out to primarily do just dredging. So if it was possible to structure this in some way to an innovative approach, I guess, Frank.
Right. So really, you're talking about a sort of a consortium of contractors.
Right, single source through one vendor to go out to the other 2 or one that may be able to build. Yeah, we went out as dredging. We have to have the poles reset and docks rebuilt.
Yeah.
So we had one person that did it, he sold his company. No one else seems to do all 3 things. So if we structured the RFP to do all 3 things, we may weed out the larger guys that don't want to do
Well,
it.
you might have to modify your restriction on having the use of subcontractors. I'm not totally sure that there's any prohibition, technical prohibition against subcontractors, but I'd have to check.
Well, when we did that, we were aware that there are those guys out there who like to team up. And Coastline is just a manager, so it's a middleman on it, and we felt that was not a good way to go about it. But that's certainly something we could change.
What you usually do though in a case like that, if they use subcontractors, then you require a bond of whoever takes that contract. And to say, they're still on the hook, but if they hire other people, they're still on the hook.
Why can't we have 2 separate bids, one to remove the docks and put them back?
And that's another possibility too.
Well, yeah, what Frank's idea was can we find a way to narrow the field to people we know we can trust, if I can put it that way.
I have an answer for that. I mean, first of all, we have the right to only take the bids from whom we believe are responsible bidders. So what happens a lot is that when a bid comes in and we do an RFP or an invitation for bids, normally our engineer will come along and examine the performance of those people. And he can, and if he says, sorry, we can prove that you've been unreliable in other instances, that's a proper reason for us to reject the bid. So there may be some possibilities of doing that, and then maybe you and I can, maybe you can call me and figure out what you have in mind, and we can come up with some solution to at least do that interim work. I think the dredging is going to be a little more complicated because of the bridge situation.
You know, what we were thinking, what we discussed outside just now is if we could structure what Frank's referring to, and we get a team that we accept, they do the docks now and wait till next year when the bridge is finished and do the dredging.
Yeah, that's something for you.
So
Consider.
we're just throwing up ways of trying to cobble together a solution that isn't $1 million.
I guess my question to you now is if you wanted to work fast on this, let's assume you prepared an RFP to put in the new docks. How long will that take to get up and to get bids in?
Oh, we can turn, I mean, it's all on the computer. We can turn this around in a week or two.
Oh, I see.
We can get you a draft of our idea. Once the idea is fleshed out, I sit down to the computer and just turn it around and show it to everybody and tweak it until we think it's right. But yeah, it's not a long lead time to get a new RFP written.
I think the idea of breaking it into two component parts has a lot of merit, because it seems to me you have a lot of concerns who will do pilings and docks. They don't do dredging, and the reverse is also true. You have dredgers who don't do pilings and docks. Break it into two parts, then you can coordinate the time factor on the two, and you can have docks being built or dredging is being completed. You're not waiting for the dredger to turn around and do something different.
And that's, under these circumstances, I believe it would be permissible. There is a general rule saying with municipalities that you shouldn't break up contracts. You shouldn't do that. However, because you've got the complication with the dredging and the bridge opening, I don't see that getting it out separately would be all that difficult.
Again, that's completely a legal opinion. I know from my experience that the controller's office does not look favorably on
No, I
breaking
know
apart a bid.
No, I know.
Because then the purpose is that you're looking to
Yeah. But we're not trying to
not
do that
follow
in
the
this
bidding
case.
process.
Yeah, we're not trying to chop it up into little pieces.
We're avoiding so.
Deliberately, because you have a reason, in my opinion, because you're looking for some timing to get your docks going. And so I think, Maria, that, sure, you're gonna get possibly an auditor in here saying, oh, you shouldn't have done that, but I think we have good reason to say why we did. And that's the experience I've noticed in cases like that. But you're right, you're not supposed to break up projects and piecemeal. The controller doesn't like that.
How much dredging Mr. DiNapoli has done, but
Well, I think you take first things first. If you have an immediate need for your docks because of whatever reasons you have, to give recreational facilities to the residents, then I think, in my opinion, that's reasonable justification for doing that part. Because dredging is sort of different.
you can understand dredging and removing the soil, two very different things, but they're part of the same operation. The dock, pulling the pilings and the dock removal and repair, that's very, very different from a you could have that just as a separate RFP if you weren't doing dredging.
Yeah, sure.
Are we talking about doing a separate RFP for putting in the new islands in the new dock slope space?
That was one first idea, yes.
Right. And then the other RFP would go out again for the dredging, and then there would be a third RFP to put back.
No.
Stuff?
No. The firm that takes out should be the one that puts back, and that's the way, well, last year's was written that way, where everything was combined. but the firm that would take stuff out and do construction would be the ones to put it back.
Right, and now that we might consider doing that because we might have to put the dredging off for a year, that would be a separate RFP.
Yeah, that's one
Correct.
path.
Yeah, that's another thing. I think what Ron was trying to do was to make it a complete project because supposedly it would be cheaper. Okay, because it's one contract. In this particular case, however, since you can't comply with some timing requirements, I think the grouping of everything together wasn't really necessary in the first place, but I know why you did.
The first time around, we thought it would be pretty straightforward.
Right.
And of course, we were in the throes of COVID and everybody trying to deal with it, so.
Sure.
But maybe if you wait to do the RFP for the actual dredging until after the bridge is completed, people might respond better, because if you do it all now as one project, we might be in the same position that we're in now.
That's possible.
The only question I have is that I presume that removing the old dock makes the dredging process a lot easier than putting in a new dock and extending it to a point where you now have to dredge around, the new pilings and all of that stuff. I'm an expert on it.
Yeah, we had a close look at that. Having moved the docks to the east end, water is deeper there now. Not as much dredging was needed at that end of the marina. So maybe the new pilings can just be left. That's something that we do actually in the RFP tell the bidders it's to be there, it's their consideration to figure out what they think and to tell us how they want to do it. So that's optional.
Yeah.
At this time, unless there's any further discussion on this matter, we do need to go into executive session at the recommendation of the village attorney, and it is 7:33 p.m. and the resolution would be to adjourn the regular meeting at 7:33 p.m. to convene into executive session to discuss it with the village attorney pending litigation. So I do need someone to make that motion.
Executive session.
Thank you, trustee Nygroff, and thank you, trustee Valsecchi. Trustee Santoro?
Yes.
Trustee Cornell?
Yes.
Trustee Nygroff?
Yes.
Trustee Nicosi?
Yes.
Trustee Bartolomeo?
Yes.
Trustee Valsecchi?
Yes.
Mayor Dimitrov?
Yes.
And we might be able to do it right now if no one wants to. He's leaving, so there's no sign. Yeah, but this report's very short.
Turn it
Are we doing it to Karen?
Oh, we have to turn it.
I was told they just finished
regular meeting, the time is 7:46 PM. Thank you, trustee Romeo.
Second.
Thank you, trustee Valsecchi. Trustee Santoro?
Yes.
Trustee Cornell?
Yes.
Trustee Nigro?
Yes.
Trustee Romeo?
Yes.
Trustee Valsecchi?
Yes.
Mayor Di Natale?
Yes.
And we will close the regular meeting at 7:40. Trustee, trustee Newcomb. Yes, thank you. 7:47 PM to close the regular meeting. Do I have a motion to close the regular meeting?
I'll make a motion.
I'll second.
Thank you, trustee Santoro, trustee Cornell, trustee Santoro. Yes. Trustee Cornell, trustee Nigro.
Yes.
Trustee Minicozzi.
Yes.
Trustee Romeo.
Yes.
Trustee Valsecchi. Mayor Di Natale.
Yes.
Gotcha.
Ray, I apologize for jumping the gun on the local law. I was trying to get at it.
In my 4 years as mayor, I've never once used the.
Use it,
gavel.
You wanted to throw it at somebody.
Yeah, to shut everybody up.
Why do I keep sitting next to right-handed mayors with gavels?
You get it.
They